Today on our Tiny House Talk Tuesday, what are we talking about today? You forgot? All right, well, since she has forgotten, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk...
I was put on the spot.
Welcome, everybody, to Tiny House Talk. Our most popular videos. I don't know why.
I don't know either.
Apparently, you like to hear us talk. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I don't think that's it. Something. Anyhow.
I once was lost, oh, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Today on our Tiny House Talk Tuesday, what are we talking about today? You forgot? All right, well, since she has forgotten, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk...
I was put on the spot.
Brain fart. Today we're going to talk about why we like to do things with our hands, like homemade type stuff, and work with our hands and those kinds of things, right? And so, well, tell him, Bobo. For those of you that don't know, because you can't see because he's off camera, Bobo's learned how to say uh-oh. And he's sitting here in his high chair eating some cheese and lunch meat and crackers. So if you see me ducking off to the side here, that's what I'm doing. Right? So, why? Why do we do things, I'm going to say the hard way. Ends up being the hard way most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes longer. Every time, just about, it takes longer. It gets faster sometimes as you go, but yeah. Why do we do things homemade? Why do we do things with our hands? We'll give some examples and kind of dive off into this conversation, and we'll just see how it goes. That's kind of my fun part about the Tiny House Talk, is just to see how the conversation goes. So, why? Why do we do things that way? Originally, I've got like two main original reasons for me, right? And that is, that's just kind of what my family's always done. As far as like, if you needed to fix something at your house or build something at your house, you just kind of went and did it because that's just what you did, right? And then another reason would be money for me, right? So Melissa and I have never been, the Lord has always taken care of us. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But we've never been what most people would consider overly wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, right? Yeah. And you can do it yourself, and even if you don't know how, maybe you jump on the YouTubes or whatever, right? And you try to learn something. But a lot of times you can save a little money if you do something yourself, right? And I'll give you some examples. So like the tiny house, right? We bought the shell. I could have built the shell. But I priced it, and for me to buy the material to build the shell versus buying the shell, it was cheaper, just as cheap to buy the shell and let somebody else build it and bring it to us. But all the work was done by us. Like we did it all ourselves, right? I mean, we had some help from my dad and some other people, but did the work ourselves. All of our chicken coops and rabbit coops and all that kind of stuff, we build all that stuff. And a huge reason why for me is it's just cheaper a lot of times to build it myself than it is to buy. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes I look on Amazon or wherever, farm stores or stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it's either, if it's cheaper than what I can build myself, it's not what I'm looking for, or it's just as cheaper, better for me to build it myself.
Kind of like cooking at home.
Yes.
Versus like eating out,
Yeah. And for me, he's dancing over here. He's excited about his cheese. He's over here getting all excited. Yeah, go Bobo. Another part of it for me, as far as like building things, is it's really rewarding to me. Even if it's not perfect, if it's functionable, right? Yeah. It's really rewarding to me to be able to look back on it and know that the Lord provided the materials and provided the know-how and the understanding to be able to actually like take your hands and go use them to make something. Yeah. Right? It's very fulfilling for me, very rewarding for me. And Melissa already talked about food, right? So food's a big one, and we've kind of we've touched on it some with our PCOS video. If you are curious about PCOS, or maybe you have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, I recommend you scroll down through. We'll put this in a playlist. Scroll down through our Tiny House Talks and find that video. A very open conversation about our struggles with, about Melissa's struggles and our struggles as a family with PCOS. Right? So why do we make food at home?
Like just candy or like all of it?
All of it that we do make it. Now, I'm gonna say before she answers this question, like we don't make everything. And we don't make as much as we want to make, even, I would say, right? So we want to get into some dairy animals and make our own cheeses and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And have our own milk and our own butter and our own cream and some of that kind of stuff. I would like to get it to where, like, basically I'm buying maybe flour.
And I make
sugar.
our own soap, too.
You do?
I want to. I've kind of put a pause on it because I had a lot made, and then we're planning on getting goats, dairy goats, and I want to just try to probably do goat milk soap, and that's a lot of fun. Did you have anything else you wanted to say? Or?
So, what are some of the reasons to make food at home, make it yourself, make dinners at home, process your own animals, process your own chickens and your own deer, and what are some of those reasonings for you anyway?
It's a lot better for you. It's a lot healthier for you, obviously. I started making even like, so we don't eat pasta as much when we do. Sometimes I even make it with like deer burger too.
When
if we have it available. But there's not as much like preservatives and stuff versus like store-bought box hamburger helper.
Yeah.
Like no colors or really
No
or
color
anything like
additives
that.
or anything. Yeah.
And I think it's just as good, probably better.
Better. For sure. I've ate a lot
think so.
of box hamburger helper in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And your homemade hamburger helper, which is not goulash because Melissa doesn't like goulash. So it's not goulash. It is homemade, cheesy hamburger helper.
Get it right. No.
And it is delicious. Alright, so the homemade cheesy goulash stuff, right? Melissa makes it with whatever kind of burger we have around, deer burger or what have you.
Yeah.
And also puts in all just, right, her own whole ingredients, right, and cheese and those kinds of things. Now, do we make all that at home? No, but she assembles it all at home, and we know the ingredients we are using, whether or not they're good or okay or maybe not so good, but we like it anyway, so we use it anyhow, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it might be. She's watching Bo intently because Dad just flipped him a whole club cracker.
Cracker.
Yeah, he's gotten fussy, and I thought maybe it would help. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad, but we're going to try it out. So, once again, club cracker, right? We don't.
Yeah.
Actually, I think these are great value.
Made our own crackers.
We have, and they're delicious.
We need to make a video on that.
Yeah,
too.
and we need to make them more often.
Yeah.
But that's part of the problem is you can't do everything at once. You have to baby step into this stuff.
Yeah.
Even if. So Melissa and I, before we started trying to live the lifestyle we're living now, we still like did a lot of homemade and canning and that kind of stuff. But when you start going up, so I don't mean higher levels like it's better. It is better, but that's not like any better than anybody else type higher level. Just as you try to advance further into doing stuff yourself, for us, we have found we have to take baby steps because I want to go and just accomplish everything all in 1 week, right? But you can't. It's just not possible.
Not feasible.
Right,
No.
and we don't have the financial ability even, right, to do a lot of that kind of stuff that we would even like to do. And so you have to kind of baby step into it. But with your food especially, right, like, and I have found that, don't get me wrong, I still like to go out to eat, but a majority of the food that we make, I would say, is better than what we're going to get at a restaurant. Right? So then you spend all that money at the restaurant, and then you're disappointed in the food.
And you may say, well, I'm not a good cook. Well, you just got to get in there and try it. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm glad you brought this point up.
practice it.
Yeah.
Because, like, when we got married, all I really knew, I knew, like, the basics, you know?
We had a lot of fried burgers and taters.
But I got so sick of, the only thing I really made is he was remodeling our house, and So I would like cooking dinner, you know, at our house, and then I'd go back to my house because he was living there already. It was before we were married. And the only thing I really knew how to cook was fried burgers and with cheese on them and fried potatoes. I can make a mean fried potato.
She can.
But that's, I mean, now I can make a lot of other stuff.
Yes.
Because for some stay-at-home mom, you have to cook. You know, you can't afford to, most people can't afford to eat out all the time, you know, and you know what's in it and you appreciate it more. Or at least I do.
Yeah.
We do.
So I want to get to a whole bunch of points because you just said like a whole blanket load of really good things all in one shot. Yeah, that was good. But I want to reel it back a little bit to learning, right? When Melissa was learning to cook more and I was learning to cook more. Funny story about the burgers and the fried taters. After we got married, we were like that first week we were married and we were home together. I was like, what do you want for dinner? And Melissa was like, anything but a burger patty and potatoes, right? Like anything but that. Because we just gotten tired of it. But like Melissa said, maybe you're not a cook. Maybe you're not a good cook. Maybe you've never built anything before, right? Maybe you've never nailed two boards together. Maybe the thought of that just absolutely makes you shake down inside. Here's what I would say. Once again, just start. And give yourself some grace. You know you're going to mess stuff up.
Yeah.
Right? So, everybody watching this, you're probably good at something. Right? Like, you probably have something that you feel fairly confident in doing. Yeah. Like, comfortable in doing. You still had to learn that thing. Like, you're better today at it than you were a year ago. Or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or whatever. Right? And I think that is, and that's been a big thing I've tried to mention a lot in our videos, is don't be so scared of trying something that you just never try it, right?
It's just intimidating.
Yeah.
Don't be intimidated by everything.
So I'm gonna take our tiny house for example, right? If a builder, somebody that does it for a living, comes into this house, they're gonna look around and go, well, there's a lot of mistakes around here, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And they wouldn't be wrong. There's some mistakes around. There's some things that aren't exactly how they probably should be, and those kinds of things. But our house is safe. Our house is livable. It's comfortable, and it protects us from the elements. And at the end of the day, that's what it needs to do. So I do too, and I'm very thankful that the Lord has provided it for us. However, like I said, some of my trim pieces, especially, right, is what I'm thinking of. That it was late. It was like 11 o'clock. We were going to move in the next night, and I couldn't get my angle right, and I just kept brain farting it. And finally, I said, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to nail it, and it is what it is. I don't care if it's a half-inch gap. I don't care. And it's still that way today. And that goes for everything. It goes for cooking. That goes for building. That goes for processing your own animals. You take deer, for instance. Maybe you've never processed a deer in your entire life. And the thought of processing a deer just absolutely terrifies you. Just get after it.
And who's saying you can't? Satan is saying you can't.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I used to be like, I can't do that. Like, you know, a lot of stuff we've done, I'm like, I can't do that. But
so I can think of a whole list of things that are very important to us today that you would have said 5 years ago you can't do.
Yeah.
Right? So homeschooling.
Like, the Lord has helped me with that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, helping me get over that, like, who's saying I can't try that? You know, and be good at it. You know?
Yeah. So much of it is just letting your fears aside and just try it.
Yeah.
And give yourself some grace, knowing you're not going to be perfect at it, knowing you're going to mess up.
Yeah.
And another thing, too, I think, is getting yourself out of the mindset of, when I say the world, I mean, like, out of the mindset of everything has to be this exact way because that's the way so-and-so did it, right? So, I'll give you the great-grandma and the ham story, right? So, most of you guys probably heard some version of this story, right? But some girl was cooking her first ham. For Christmas. She just got married, had a family, and she was cooking a ham, right? And she cut the end off the ham. And her mom come over, and she goes, you know, Mom, why do we cut the end off the ham? And she goes, you know, we're just going to have to ask your great-grandma. I don't know. Yeah, this is what she always done. Right, it's what I always have done. And they called up Grandma and was like, hey, Grandma, why do we cut the end off the ham, right? And Grandma was like, because I never had a pan big enough for the whole ham. Yeah. Right? That's just how she did it. And we all have some of that stuff in our life. But you take like, I'll use deer for instance, butchering a deer. If you get the mindset of, I have to, after you've killed the deer, all you have to do is get it down small enough that you can preserve that animal, whether you can it or freeze it, and then reuse it later. Yeah. Whether it be ground up burger or it be chunks of meat. You don't have to have like these special cuts and all of this. You can work into some of that if you want to.
Yeah.
But if you've never done it and it terrifies you.
It doesn't have to be like a professional.
No, you don't have to be able to make the best jerky stick you ever did eat. No. Just learn how to get it from the deer or from the field to your table where it's edible.
Yeah.
Right? And even then realize you're going to mess it up sometimes cooking it or whatever if it's something new to you, right? But I'm telling you, it will give you so much confidence and fulfillment if you will just lay your hands to it.
Yeah.
And here's an idea. Pray about it. Mm-hmm. Right? Ask the Lord to help you. I believe He will. On stuff that He wants you to do, He will help you with that kind of stuff. Right? Another point you brought up, which I know I'm talking a lot here, but I want to get, because you just, like, all the important stuff just laid it out.
Sorry,
there.
guys.
Yeah, just laid it out there. Appreciation.
Yeah.
So, it shouldn't work this way. And I know I shouldn't be this way. By the way, Mom, he is mowing down whole crackers, no problem.
I know.
Yeah, no problem. Is it good, buddy? Yeah. So, I know it shouldn't operate this way, but especially you take food. You take our eggs, for instance, with our chickens, right? I will be a lot less wasteful knowing the effort it took for us for those eggs to get to our table, right? Knowing that I've had to build the coops and buy the feed and, right, trying to figure out how to protect them and free range them where we get the best possible eggs. And right now I'm on a feed journey trying to figure out how to best feed them the best possible foods and at the lowest possible price, and what do we actually need to do and not do, and all that kind of stuff, right? And so I appreciate that. I appreciate those green beans that we can, and I'll be more apt to eat the leftovers and make sure we get the leftovers ate up or whatever than I would if we didn't put any effort into it whatsoever. We just worked and then went and bought it at Walmart and then come home and it sat on the shelf and it's probably old, let's throw it away, right? There's a lot more appreciation there. You just made some skirts for the girls last week for your first time ever, right? Making clothing.
So I've sewed like basic sewing before, but this is my first like piece of clothing I'd ever made. Those of you that were at church, you've seen them. They were just purple skirts.
Yeah. And those girls were amped up over wearing these homemade purple skirts. And should they appreciate them more than something that we would buy them at the store? No. They shouldn't. They should appreciate them at the same rate. However, we're all human. We all, right, are what we are. And they did. They appreciated those skirts more. Right? Leah kept saying, I don't want to get it dirty. I don't want to get my Kurt dirty, she kept saying, right? And if you know Leah at all, you know that she don't care about getting clothes dirty, right? But it was something she knew Mama worked hard on, and so she really appreciated it a ton. And so we appreciate things that we lay our hands to more. My dad, when I was young and started working with him some, he bought me a few tools to get started with. And he told me he would buy the first few tools to get me started, and then I would have to pay for the rest of them because he said you will appreciate those tools more, and you won't be as apt to lose them and those kinds of things if you earn it yourself, right? And he was right. There's a lot of truth to that. Yeah. So doing things this way. What about like blankets and clothes and stuff? Like, what's your drive? Do you just enjoy doing it? Or is it kind of along the same lines of everything else we've been talking about and you enjoy doing it?
Pretty much both. I really enjoy doing it. It's probably one of my favorite hobbies. I like to crochet and knit. Those are probably my favorite things to do, but I like making stuff for people. I feel like they appreciate it. Usually, some don't. Some people don't. You know, it's just people. But I just like to bless other people, and so that's how I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. It is. And you guys think back to your own life, right? If you've ever been given something homemade, like it probably meant a lot more to you Even if it wasn't, maybe it wasn't at the quality. Maybe it was somebody's first time making something, right? And it wasn't very good quality even, but you know they worked hard on it.
Yeah.
Take your little kid drawing you a picture, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know that's not the best piece of art you've ever seen, but you know they worked hard on it and it blesses you. So you take that same thing forward, right? I know that, once again, and it shouldn't be this way, but when I know somebody works hard on something and they give it to you, like, you appreciate that gift at a deeper level, right? Even like firewood, like cutting your own firewood, you have a connection to your heat source or your cooking source or whatever that you don't have when you're just paying an electric bill. Even
with like the skirts and stuff, like seeing them Sunday, it kind of made it surreal for me because I never made clothes before.
Yeah.
It felt good for me and my mom heart, I'll say, and my mom heart, just because, you know, I love them that much, you know, and to see them love what I made them, and it gave me more of a fulfillment as far as I'm taking care of them, you know.
Yeah, doing what you're supposed to do. Not a pride thing, but just this is what I'm supposed to be doing thing. Right? Yeah. Pretty much everything that we currently do homemade, all kind of centers around the same things, right? First and foremost, it's what we felt led to do, right? And then secondly, for us, a lot of it is money savings, right? Financial savings. Thirdly, I would say, you know, so whether you build it, you make it, you cook it, whatever, like, you know what's in it. You know what it's all about, right? And then lastly, I would say just that level of fulfillment that it provides.
Yeah, and it may take a long time. It may be the harder way, and a lot of people are like, ooh, that's a lot of work. Yeah, you have to have a different mindset about it. I think if you are that kind of person, you have a different mindset about it.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be... Okay.
I don't think always wanting to take the fastest, easiest route is always the best.
No, absolutely not.
Do I want to sometimes? Yeah.
Guaranteed.
For sure. Do I always, every time we run out of... we need to get back into making mayonnaise more.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
We did a video on that. If you haven't seen our homemade mayonnaise, check it out in our videos. And
I need to redo another mayonnaise video using olive oil because I like lard a lot, but I think olive oil to me makes the best tasting mayonnaise. Lard is probably the most sustainable homemade mayonnaise for most people, but olive oil is the best tasting as far as I'm concerned.
We need to get out of the market, like. So, when we'd run out, it was kind of frustrating. So I'm like, I don't have time to make a mayonnaise, you know what I mean?
It's tedious. Making mayonnaise is tedious.
And it's a little slower. But it is better for you and saves you some money.
It does.
So.
Yeah. We kind of, whenever we were finishing the old house and then building this house, and we were living with Mom, we kind of, there's like a year or so, 2 year maybe, time frame where we had to kind of throw some of that out the window and just rush through getting a bunch of stuff done. You had just had one baby, and the Lord decided we should have Bo fairly quickly after having Leah Joe. And then, so we kind of got out of the habit of some of that stuff, right? Of making your own mayonnaise and some of the other stuff. Most of us will probably never get to where we're making everything and growing everything and harvesting everything. But if you can just start somewhere. One of the things we've talked about is getting rid of all of our plastic cups, right? Because if you don't know, there's all kinds of terrible things in the plastics and it leaches into your cups. For men, there's a bunch of estrogen that gets into those plastics and leaches into your cups, right? And so when we're trying to get away from those kinds of things, are we going to get away from plastics altogether? No, right? We got plastic water lines in this house. Yeah. And most places do anymore. They use that PEX water lines, and I don't blame them. I've used it. It's wonderfully easy to work with. It is really, really simple, and that's why everybody puts it in. But if you can just do what you can do and help some of that stuff, right? Something with the homemade stuff. Like, we'll make our own mayonnaise. Will we ever be to the level where we're making our own mustard? I doubt it. Right? Maybe. That'd be cool. Right?
I think it'd be cool to make our own ketchup.
So I could see us making our own ketchup for sure. And definitely our own barbecue sauces. I already do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Not like 100% homemade, but mix up my own sauces.
No.
Right? But you'll probably not get to where, like I don't grow coffee. Right? And where I live, I'm probably not going to be able to grow coffee. But you may never get to where you're doing it 100%. But if you can just start with like one thing. Like, and you can just decide, you know what, we are no longer buying the store-bought version of that.
Yeah.
Right? And from now on, if we want it, we'll make it homemade. And we'll decide whether or not we want it bad enough to make it homemade, or, you know what, maybe we have this thing we always bought every week that we thought we needed all the time. We don't really need that much of it. We were just buying it because it's a habit.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but then I would say, right, the biggest thing is just trying it. Just putting in the effort.
Yeah.
Lay your hands to it, make a mistake or two, and roll on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get to work. Quit watching YouTube. Get after it. Put your hands to
Although,
something.
if you don't know how to do something,
Watch YouTube.
Good.
That is true. Or if you need a little inspiration, sometimes watching YouTube's not bad.
It is.
Right?
Yes.
Alright, guys. We appreciate you guys watching, and we will catch you next time.
See you guys.
See you later.